for a long time, like as we talked before, boomers and traditionalists were like, just work because work is supposed to suck. It's work. Because, they come from a legacy of kind of indentured servitude, poor farmers, things like that. Like, it makes sense. That's what their background was. There wasn't exchange always. And then our generation came in, Gen X, and said, well, no, but does work have to suck?
Yeah.
Right? We have all this information now with the internet and access to so much more data. But we're managed by these boomers, so yep, it's gonna suck. Just right. And then the millennials did come in, and they were like, "Wait, work shouldn't suck, right? It shouldn't suck, and I'm gonna make it better." And we're a big population. We're the biggest workforce that's hit the United States as a generation in a long time. We're gonna make it better, and they're working super hard, and they're kind of going against a tide that's really hard to fight. But still trying to fight, and unfortunately, they're kind of burning out on it. But now you've got Gen Z, or the Zoomers, as I like to call them, because it just sounds like so perfect to me. With Zoom and Boomer, it's perfect. But they're now like, no, work won't suck. It won't. Yeah. We are determined. And they are fighting, pulling this movement and pulling alongside the millennials. And now the Gen Xers are like, yeah, work shouldn't suck. That's right.
Welcome to Are We Happy Yet?
I'm Hannah Buzzo, licensed therapist.
I'm Jane Thatcher Hahn, licensed clinical social worker. We're not just friends, we're therapists who have been working with our clients on improving their mental health and relationships for years. Coupled with our own life experiences, we found ourselves in a conundrum. As mental health becomes less stigmatized and conversations about healing, self-help, and personal growth have gone mainstream, why are more and more Americans reporting lower life satisfaction and increased mental health issues with each passing year?
The question kept nagging at us. Despite the growing openness around mental health, why are we seeing an increase in anxiety, depression, and isolation?
It's baffling, right? We're all diving into therapy, self-help, psychedelics, meditation, life hacks, you name it. But the sense of connection and well-being seems to be slipping away, no matter what we do.
So Jane and I got curious about the bigger picture, how creativity, politics, technology, work, spirituality, culture, and more impact our well-being. Our goal is to spark open, relatable conversations about these topics. Through unfiltered discussions, a few uncomfortable truths, we'll have lots of laughter and lightheartedness along the way. Join us each week as we dig deep into these questions, share insights, and try to understand what will truly, finally, make us happy.
Let's go.
So, 1 out of 4 people are in the most recent Gallup survey say that they hate their job. They like their job. So 3 out of 4.
So most people don't like.
Yeah. And then that's international statistics. I haven't looked at just US only. And then internationally, 23% of the population reports that they show up for work and they're fully engaged.
How many percent?
23. And then 62% say that they show up and they kind of work, 6-7 hours or so or whatever. And then what's the remaining 14% report that they show up for work and they don't even work.
We should hit some of those stats at the beginning.
Great. Yeah.
They're pretty jarring.
They're very jarring. Yeah. Tie that to the bottom line.
Yeah, and the fact that we spend most of our time on this planet doing that.
Yeah. So even showing up and not doing anything and being totally disengaged. I mean, think of that energy that creates in your body. 100%. People don't really feel great about that.
No, nobody does. People want to be productive. They want to. It builds confidence. When they're not working, they don't feel confident and they spiral down. It's a huge source of depression. And so when people say, "Oh, people are just lazy," I'm like, they're not lazy. I mean, I've never met someone who's lazy. They're just not in the right job.
Yeah.
And so, I've really worked with a lot of people now, and I'm a cynic. I am.
I know. It's true. Actually, I am too. For us to be cynical and still be able to say no, people really truly actually want to work and want to thrive and want to be productive. That's saying something.
Yeah, Kim Kardashian, do you hear that?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Well, I think this podcast has already started.
Yeah, let's just
on the heels of all of this. We've been having an amazing conversation, and one of the things that Hannah and I have found really interesting and have talked a lot about is dissatisfaction at work and how, like you said, work is such a big part of your life. And so we were curious about who we could talk to who would have a little bit more insight and knowledge and expertise about this.
I'm just like, it's like two of the most attractive people. I just like
probably won't cut out.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love this podcast. It's so good.
I love this part of the podcast.
they love their jobs and they're hot.
Yeah, you can hate them. Those are the type of people that people don't like. Before we go any further, please introduce yourselves, how you came to be here today, what you all do at Turning the Corner, and how you help people, and why you help people. Yeah.
You want to start?
Sure. So I'm Kendra Prospero, and I'm the CEO and founder of Turning the Corner. And I started this business after spending most of my life curious about the work people do and why. And then really feeling like I've been very compelled and drawn to wanting to do all I can to end suffering in the workplace. And so we've been in business now since 2011 and have an incredible staff that works on both sides of that equation on what it takes for individuals to love their job and then what companies and leaders can do to create an environment where people are loving their job.
And I'm John Bartley. I am the Vice President of People and HR Services for Turning the Corner. So I work on the HR side of our business. So I'm typically working with employers to help create those environments and support our mission of ending suffering in the workplace. So my team and I work with employers to help create that environment, whether it's through policies or practices or their values. What are the things that are getting in the way of people being engaged and loving their job?
Everything they've said since they walked in the door was smart. So
I know.
It's like too bad for the listeners; they can't have heard everything.
I feel like we should like give them the podcast. Well, it's such a big thing, right? Like that is, with Are We Happy Yet? Like we're really wanting to look at this stuff, right? And one thing I was struck by before we hit record is y'all look at it both from like what can the individual do, but also what can the system do to make folks more satisfied in their work. So I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about when you're talking about the system, I immediately think of leadership. And we talked a little bit earlier even about what can leaders do to help create that environment. And there's a lot of things that they inadvertently do or unconsciously do that kind of diminish people or diminish their enjoyment at work.
Like what?
And they might not even know they're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen this a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first things that I think a lot of leaders don't get clear on, it is so critical, is they are not real about what are their real expectations for their employees. So they'll write something down, they'll put it maybe in a handbook or they'll turn it into a pretty poster on the wall, but then they're not modeling it every day and they're not living it. And so then subconsciously or even consciously, the employees then are like, well, I don't really mean that thing about innovation because all they're doing is shoving bureaucracy down my throat. Or they'll say, you know, this isn't a work hard, play hard environment. This is just a work hard environment. And so it creates that confusion, and then it creates the employees to kind of feel a little bit disengaged because they're like, you know, they're not sure.
Right.
But if when a leader gets really clear, like, what do I really expect? If it's a work hard environment, that's okay. But then you want to hire for it and fire for it and manage for it and all the other things that go with being a leader. But it's just that this sort of this accidental dishonesty, or I call them accidental values, that become create this sort of incongruent environment. And so and then the employees don't know who's going to show up that day or what value is going to matter that day, and it's just hard to feel good about the work.
Yeah, and the one that I see, and here's how it plays out really frequently, is you get a leader that says like, oh, I support work-life balance and the whole person, and yet their employees are getting emails at like 2 a.m. They're getting emails while their leader is on vacation or on the weekend. That person never disengages. And so the message that they're inadvertently sending by their behaviors are, no, you have to work all the time. And you should be working when you're on vacation. And you should be checking your email constantly. And like Kendra said, maybe that's okay for if you are
real
hiring. Yeah, if you're real about it and you're hiring. don't say you like work-life balance, but then email your employees constantly, because then they feel like they have to engage and meet you where you are. And so sometimes we have to sit with a leader and say like, okay, so which is it? Is it work-life balance, or is it, you know, working hard and driving constantly? Get real.
Do you think people can just say that? Because I can imagine, I mean, I've had bosses, and I've done this in the past too, where it's like you say it's fine for everyone else. Like, you guys do work-life balance, but then I'm on vacation in Mexico sending emails. So, like, do you think people can just say this is the value? Or kind of what I'm hearing is like they have to model it.
They do.
They have to live it.
Yeah, they do. Because otherwise it won't happen. It's just like with anything in life, you get what you model. And so, but I think what happens is because it isn't consciously stated out loud, it just creates confusion.
Right.
And a confused mind doesn't know what to do, right? Doesn't work, doesn't know what decision to make, doesn't know the action that's supposed to happen. And that's when then we start to see productivity go down. When you see productivity go down, you see profitability leaking out of the business. So the big side on the company side of the work we do is this is also about the bottom line. And, you know, driving, when people love their job, it isn't just about people loving their job. It is about the bottom line. It's about having more innovation. It's about being, you know, a better brand and having, you know, better reputation. It's about so many more things that leaders do really care about. And so, and that message somehow has been missed in this conversation, because these statistics, well, the statistics are terrifying. It's, you know, that basically 60 or 78% of the population self-report that they are actively disengaged at work. 78%. So just imagine 1 to 2 hours a day that you might be paying for someone to work and they're not working. Like, do the math. That's a ton of money. How come that conversation isn't happening more inside corporate America? I don't understand it. It blows my mind, because as a business leader, someone who's watching my profit and loss like a hawk, if 78% of our team wasn't working, I mean, that would be a disaster.
Right.
And so anyway, it's mind blowing to me.
I'm thinking about from our end. So I work with a lot of leaders and I work with a lot of employees, and I'm just hearing at the end of what they say to their therapist at the end of the day, right? So the leaders are saying they are my staff is complaining too much. My staff isn't working hard. My staff is projecting all of their parent issues onto me, right?
Well, that could be.
I heard that one.
Oh, you haven't? My client's like, I'm just the mommy, the surrogate dad for all of your issues.
It does happen.
It does
I gotta
happen.
tell you, from time to time. Yeah.
And then my employees that I'm talking to are saying it's not clear. I don't know what they expect, or I don't know how to be happy, or I'm just sacrificing all of my life, so much of this time just for the stability.
They don't appreciate me.
They don't appreciate me, so I just feel like there's a lot of accusing, right? Like there's the management is accusing the employees, and the employees are accusing the management. And so I'm loving the sort of intersection that you all are talking about like what responsibility does each side have. And actually you said something about at the beginning when we were speaking about people, employees taking some personal responsibility for their happiness. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about that, and then talk more about where is that intersection? What are we all responsible for in the work world, right? Who's responsible for what?
Yes, absolutely. So from an individual side, I believe now, after working with thousands of individuals, that there's 3 things that make people content at work. I'm not going to say you're going to always be happy, because I don't believe happiness is a destination. It's a state. And so where contentment, I think, is a little bit more something you can achieve. But at work, the 3 things that make people content is, 1, you're doing what you're naturally wired to do. We all have a gift to give this world, and I deeply believe that. And figuring out what that is, it takes some time. It doesn't happen when you're 21 years old. I promise you. It doesn't probably happen until your mid-30s, honestly. And so in all the years I've been doing this, I've probably met a half a dozen people that knew what they wanted to do when they were in their 20s, and they're still doing it.
Wow.
And it's amazing to see.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I'm always just like in awe of people who have found that early
in life. Exactly. So
I'm like, wow,
so
what a gift.
it's something you cultivate over time. And what employers can do is help cultivate that. What is your gift? The second thing that people need to be happy, though, is they need to be clear on what they really want from a job. What do they need from a job? And what we've learned is there's 4, 5, maybe 6 things that people need from a job. They're the deal breakers. Like, I will not work for a jerk. I need to like the people I work with. I do not want to be by myself all day long. Like, these are some of my values. Some of the things I really need from a job. So everybody has their own 4, 5, or 6. And they're the deal breakers. And so getting clear on what those are and how you know if you have them or not. And then the last one, which sometimes ties into the second one, is being really clear on why do you work? And so my reason for working is I want to make a big difference. I mean, a big difference in people's lives. Johnny, on the other hand, his one is he wants to work for a company whose mission he believes in. Probably more things than that too. I've met people who are like, I want to save for retirement. I want to be able to create a stable environment for my family. Those are all great. It doesn't have to be altruistic like what Johnny and I are, right? And so it's just getting clear on what that is, and then making sure you keep that as your North Star. Because when the days are tough, because they will be tough, you have that North Star you're still looking at. Like, I had this Post-it note that was sitting by my bedside forever that said, there's a high probability you will make a difference in someone's life today. So get up. And then during COVID, I added, and shower. And then recently I added, and wear pants. Just in case.
Just in case. You never know.
Because that did actually happen one time.
But what I love about what you were saying about that intersection, I mean, we live in that intersection in our work because we work with small and mid-sized businesses. We work with employees. And I think the thing that a business can do that to help support what Kendra was talking about is be really clear around the values, have dialogue with their employees about expectations, being very clear about what they expect and being truthful about that, and help employees tap into what motivates them and what they're passionate about, because then it's great for everybody. It's good for the individual. It's good for the business, because that person is finding their way into what gets them into a state of flow, and it makes them excited to get out of bed in the morning and do their best work and have an impact.
So if you were to, somebody were to come to you and they don't have a job yet, and they said, Kendra, Johnny, I want to go into the workforce and I want to be happy. I want to be well. So what are my responsibilities? You would say, like, you need to figure out what you're naturally wired to do, right? So partially our job is to actually figure out what we're good at. Is that what you mean by wired? Like, what we're good at, what makes us feel flow, what makes us feel connected. Does that sound right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And then I need to identify as a worker why I work. What really gets me out of bed, and it can be a myriad of things, right? And then also identifying some purpose in that. So those are my responsibilities. And what's striking me is when a lot of my clients, or even myself, friends, family, talk about work, it's like, what are my passions? How do I make the biggest splash in the world? Which can be a value, but it doesn't have to be a value for everybody. I'm just hearing that people are sort of expecting work to do something different for them than maybe it can or should be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. I think there's a lot of dialogue out there right now, particularly in social media, where people are observing that tension between what it is they hope a job is going to do for them. And they're sort of blaming capitalism, or they're blaming the company, or that. Well, no, but it's
Guilty.
true. Well, and I do it too, right? And there is something to that. But it's also, I think, but I kind of want to say to them, like, yeah, absolutely. I've been in horrible workplaces that I'm like, yeah, it's definitely the fault of my boss or this company, or, capitalism at large to a certain extent. But also, like, have I done the work to really understand what motivates me? Like, am I doing a job that I'm just really shouldn't be doing? And is that the true source of my dissatisfaction? Like, because then I just have to look in the mirror and be like, you have to make a change. 100%. So sometimes I feel like people haven't done the soul searching, and they're expecting like the job to meld to them, or the workplace to meld to them. I'm like, baby, you're just in the wrong place.
Right. Yes.
We just got to get you in the right place.
That's such a true statement. Yeah. I think a lot of people do project onto a job, which is not a person. project onto a job that it's going to provide something to them that it may not, just because it's not an actual living thing, right? It can't fix things. It's kind of a static concept, a job is, versus, but the people who are part of the job, people who are part of a company, can provide some of that impact. But the thing is that so many people are still in this place where I believe that they are not sure what they have permission to do in a workforce. So is it possible for a boss in our middle manager boss to say, yes, you can have that flexibility, or yes, it's possible for you to go down that career path that's completely different from what I hired you for. Do I have permission actually to do that? And yes, you do. You should. I think, we don't want someone working for us that is in completely the wrong role. We don't want that, right? And so I think there's just this really weird conversation that hasn't happened yet in corporate or in the broader, larger companies, especially with, a lot of middle management around, like, what is okay? And I think it just causes all this weird dynamic, especially with our younger employees, which you've got to recognize. Majority of the workers now are younger, and I'm not going to label them as the millennials and the Zoomers, which is what we label them as, but they're just younger. And so when you're younger in your career, you're a Zoomer in this case, or you're between 22 and 30. You don't know what your natural wiring is yet. You haven't had enough experience. You don't know what you're going to be great at. You don't even know probably what you need from a job. So your whole goal should be to just experiment and try different things. Try that job for a little bit. I didn't like that. Try this one. I actually really like that part of it. Figure that out and get that encouragement from your corporate team too, to say, yeah, that's great. We don't do that. Nobody comes in, you hire a millennial or a Zoomer and you're like, well, you only work for 1 year. Yeah, because I've only been out of college for 1 year. I mean,
So the thing that I think that Kendra does really well as a boss and as a leader is say, I want you to try things while you're here and in this job. I want to experiment with you. I want to find that thing that lights you up and that charges you. And if we don't do that enough here, and if this job doesn't allow you to do that, that's okay. And you can move on and find that thing. There's been employees that you've had that have discovered what that thing is while they work for Turning the Corner, and then they leave and do that. And we're still in community with them. And it's a beautiful thing. And Kendra has always encouraged that. But I think to her point, like, a lot of managers don't feel like they have permission to do that, to have those conversations with their employees and get really real and be a mentor and a coach in that way, to say, like, it's okay if, like, there's parts of this job that you don't like. Let's talk about it. Let's find it out. And let's figure out the parts that you really do like. And hopefully we can just have you do more of that. But that's and it's a conversation that I think a lot of workers, like older workers, don't feel safe having that conversation. They're like, if I say that, they're going to fire me because I don't like this part of my job, right? And unfortunately, I think that might be true in some cases.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
It is very common because there's not a common just permission around any of that yet.
Why aren't managers having those conversations? Like, is it scarcity mindset? They're afraid people will grow and leave. Like, what is stopping? So permission is one thing. Like, the culture in the system is not explore this. But why else are those conversations not happening?
I do believe there is this is a little bit edgy if there's listeners who are in a leadership role, but I do believe there's this idea of kind of a retention trap. Where people feel like retention is the ultimate goal as a boss. And I just don't feel that way. And so I think I coined this term, or maybe it's a real thing. I don't think it is though, but you want a return on tenure. Like, you want to have them work for you as long as you're getting a return on their time with you. And I don't think there's a particular number that's magic, but I think there's some roles you don't want to lose people before a certain time. And then there's a logical time when it should make sense for people to move on. And so that's the way I think. I mean, one of the questions I ask in an interview for my team is, what happens after turning the corner? What do you want to learn here so that your next job, you're even more ready for it? I had one gal like almost fall out of her seat when I asked her that question, Tori.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, where am I? And so, but it's like, I want this place to be a resume builder for you.
Right.
Why would I not want that?
And this,
so,
go ahead.
yeah, but I mean, we're so weird in that way, or
Right.
unique in that way.
But it's funny you say that because it's clicking. It's like what I'm hearing is the best leadership is almost like mentorship. Like, yes, you have to meet the requirements of the job, but it's about how can I help you like feel content at work, feel competent, develop your skills, find out your interests. And when I think about the best bosses I've had, like they've been mentors more than anything, right? Like that mentorship piece I think is so important. I don't think we get a lot of that in our culture.
Yeah. I mean, I think so in terms of what gets in the way, I think you're right. They haven't had that modeled, right? So a lot of people who are bosses and leaders now are around our age, very young, 48.
Youthful.
You are not 48.
Yeah, Kendra and I are both 48. We were born
I'm
the same
older
year.
than him by like
What?
6
I
months.
always remind her. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. I love it. I love it.
You look beautiful. You look young. Your skin
Okay.
is great.
Oh my God.
But we were all led and mentored by boomers,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Or
and
traditionalists
Yeah.
who are just like, shut up and work, and
Yeah.
just drivers, right? And so that's who mentored us and led us.
Right.
Younger people in the workforce, that's not the leadership that they're looking for
No.
at all. And so people who are in our seat or millennial managers are struggling, I think, to find out, okay, how do I coach in this way? And how do I help people figure out what they're passionate about and still hold them accountable for the expectations of the job? It's like, it's this balancing act, right? So there is a skills gap in terms of that kind of leadership and being able to hold both those things at the same time and sort of walk that knife's edge. But we do a lot of that in our training, is just talk about how do you find that balance between challenge and connection and compassion and all of those things that go into really true leadership and coaching. And so I think that is one of the things that gets in the way, and being able to be confident in doing that, and helping people identify where they want to go next.
Yeah. And I'm hearing that part of what is needed is then the mentorship and training for the middle management and higher management and all of those pieces,
Absolutely.
right? Where if you're moving up or if you're an entrepreneur
Yeah.
and you started your own company and maybe you have a passion for the content or you have a passion for entrepreneurship, you may not have that skill set, right? So just
totally. A lot of people find their way into leadership for the wrong
100%.
reasons.
Well, and then they're not set up at all.
Yeah, they don't have the
Success.
skills. They don't have the natural wiring to be a leader in that way, right? So they become leaders because they've been there for a long time, or because the company grew around them and all of a sudden they found themselves like the director of something and they've never had any management training, and they're leading a whole group of people. Like, it's a very tenuous spot to be in. Or they were a good doer and they're like, oh, you're really good at doing, like, I don't know,
Coding.
Yeah, being a coder. And they're like, we'll have you manage other coders. Like, oh my God, can I tell you how most coders are not, hardwired to be leaders. Sorry, coders, but it's true, and you know it.
we love you though.
We love you.
But you know.
But I've worked in IT before.
You have to like people to be a good manager.
Yeah.
Fundamentally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also have to have the skill set of the content that you're working with, which I think makes it really hard. Speaking of intersections.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's actually turned into the epidemic that I think like we can actually solve. So when we talk about ending suffering in the workplace, our mission maker for that is to get managers trained. Because years ago I did some analysis on this, and there were 13 reasons why someone said they hated a job. And 10 of them, like a huge percentage of them, right? 86% were because of a poorly trained manager.
Wow.
Yeah. So just a manager who didn't know how to hire, didn't know how to fire, didn't know how to have the difficult conversations or the conversations to keep people on track, didn't even know how to set a goal that was meaningful, didn't know how to create an environment where people were getting along, didn't know how to just get rid of their own head trash, right? Like that those are the reasons someone hates a job. That's all skills.
Yeah.
You can teach, like we've taught almost 3,000 managers now how to be a manager. Those are the skills we teach. And it's like, it's so basic. And yet it's so frustrating to me that companies are not willing to make that small investment in this important role.
Yeah.
I mean, our training is like $2,000 for a 12-week facilitated program.
Wow.
And you know how hard it is to sell it?
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. It's the first thing that gets cut.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
any budget is training.
Yeah.
They will cut that first. And it's the thing that's needed the most.
It's the mission maker. Like we honestly would work ourselves out of a business if we could get every manager trained.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Because these managers aren't trained, so they're doing the best they can. They're not set up. Then their employees or team aren't getting what they need, and it's just like this trickle down effect.
Totally.
And if we could get that training, that is actually how we could get the train back on the track.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I think part of that training that is really important is part of what we talk about is being able to have real conversations with your employees, and share things about yourself. So to help people understand how to be vulnerable as a leader, in a way that's useful and productive. And also, like, for instance, just sharing, well, why are you in this job? Why are you at this company? What makes you passionate about this work? What makes you passionate about the vision of the company or the mission and the values? Like, I am super passionate about values-based leadership. And so talking about what behaviors actually align with those values, like what it looks like in action. And when you're able to talk about that as a leader and say, like, okay, one of our values at Turning the Corner is family first. Like, here's how I actively support that. Here's how I demonstrate it. And so I think when you're able to help people as a leader understand how to do that, it's a really powerful thing. And they're able to create that connection with their employees and also model the behaviors that they're wanting to see.
Right. And what you guys are saying, it's kind of like we have to like meet the bottom line and make more money and produce and do. So they're not investing in the training. They want these people to just produce more. But then you're saying 78% of people are disengaged. So it's like a
self-feeding.
Yeah. Right?
It feeds itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah.
So even if you're a leader and a business owner, somebody at the very top, and what you're really interested in is productivity and bottom line, you're saying, like, still invest in that
Training.
Oh, yeah.
Still invest in the training. There's no reason, like, those shouldn't be the things that are cut, because those are sort of leaving out these, you know, it's creating loss, right?
Well, it's kind of like an undiagnosed cancer in a way when you don't address that, or when you're promoting people into a management role and not equipping them and with the right training, with the right infrastructure, with the right values, with the modeling it. Like, if you're not doing those things, then you're just leaking out profitability.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a gardener, so I always think about those kinds of metaphors. And so I look at the training and I look at the connection with your employees and the energy that you're giving them. That's like all the fertilizer in the soil, right? If you're not doing that and you're just trying to plant the same crop every year and you're just tiring out the soil, eventually your crops will fail.
100%.
Right? I could really take this metaphor a lot of different places, but like, gotta rest the soil. You gotta go fallow for a while so that you can do. I mean, there's all sorts of like things you go. I could, that movie Idiocracy where they're watering it with Gatorade, like you're giving it the wrong kind of, nutrition. All of these things, right? It's doing the same thing and expecting more and better results, and instead it's just spitting itself out. And we believe this so much about values, like, and I think about this all the time about your values are describing how people experience you as a business and how your employees experience working there, right? And so if they can link up to those behaviors, and if you make it really actionable and clear for them about how to do that, then your business becomes more successful because it helps support your brand. People are like, oh, whenever I go to Turning the Corner, I know I'm going to meet really cool people who will help me get in touch with my meaning and my purpose, etc. But think about the brands that you like to support. So like your Carhartt beanie, right? Like, I know that I'm always going to get a piece of clothing that lasts and is durable, right? Like, the brand is linked up to their values and it's demonstrated in their products. our products are, for both of us, are about behaviors and impact on people and how they experience us.
And I think it goes back to your point, like, it's hard. Sometimes values seem like bullshit because they are just a poster on the wall, right? And so, like, people don't take them seriously because it's like, okay, you guys say that we're family first and da-da-da-da-da, but, like, that's not at all the culture. And so that makes for a really tricky situation.
Yeah. I mean, Kendra's got a really great example of how family first, like, how she actually experienced her own value.
Yeah, so in 2016 was really, really tough year. And at the beginning of the year, one of my employees had a massive back issue, and she needed to go on leave. And she was like my work wife. I mean, she was a really key employee. And I mean, it was kind of back surgery, like from the front kind of back surgery, like really, really bad. And but of course, family first, right? So I modeled that. Yes, do whatever you need to do. Take the care you need. And we just took care of her. And, you know, I didn't even think of her as an employee. I thought of her as a friend who was in need. And then I made some really risky decisions for the business. And I could see that I was going to run out of cash in about maybe April, very early. And I was like, ooh, okay, got to hustle here without my work wife, but I can do it. And then I found my brother dead of a heroin overdose in July.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was really awful. By then she was back and, you know, was able to help. And I had another just great team at the time. I had about 12 people at the time. And they said, no, family first, go grieve.
God, I just got chills.
And so I didn't know what else to do except to go grieve. Right. Like it was devastating. And so then I left and I kind of called in like a couple weeks later and I said, how are you guys doing? They're like, actually good. Like I was hustling like crazy right before he died. And so we had leads and they just ran with them. And this went on for 6 months. I didn't come back till January.
Oh my God.
I know. But then the ending of this story is even crazier, or not the ending because there isn't an end, but that I finally came back in January. And because I was at that point, I'd gone through all the suffering that comes with, you know, heavy grief and you know, big death. And I was ready to kind of just be like distracted, I guess. And when I walked in, they were like, yay, are you ready to hustle? Right? Like, we need you back running. And I was like, yes, actually I am ready to hustle. And they said, but we have a gift for you. And I thought, all right, like, I don't really want a framed picture of my brother or something, you know, that feeling of, no, I walked in and on my desk was an award from the Denver Business Journal. We were a second fastest growing company that year.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
I have chills in my body. Talk about practice what you preach.
Yes. Yeah. It was, I mean, that whole experience changed me in so many ways. God. It was just like, okay, this is so, like, I changed the way I lead. I mean, I used to kind of see myself as I'm in charge and I'm the one that has to da-da-da-da-da. But at that experience kind of started turning the ship for me a little bit to more like, I'm just a worker too. It's just my job is different. My job is to find the capital, and my job is to, you know, make the tough decisions and handle the jerks and, you know, like some of that. But like, I'm just in the trenches like everybody else. I'm just the same part of this ecosystem, just like anybody else is. And it just changed everything for me. And I started seeing business differently too. Like I never have ever thought like people were like a family, because we're not a family, right? People move on and you might not see them ever again. So it never resonated with me, but I started seeing it as a community, a micro community, right? And this has just showed up over and over through the years. Like John was in our community already, right? I mean, I knew John or of John since 2018, 17. Didn't come work for us until 2022. Yeah. And so, but I mean, how amazing that for all those years we were already in community together. And so, and then like one of my best friends who was also in the business for a while, she ended up leaving and I helped her find a job because we're a community together. Right. And so when people leave now, I just don't think of it the way I used to, where I would be I still feel sad for a hot minute, right? Because I don't want to lose people, but you know, I don't feel the same way as I used to. Like now I'm like, yeah, good for you. You're moving on to a bigger, better job. We lost a colleague this last year because she's going to go work for a company managing like a team of 20 HR people,
like
making like $1 gazillion. Like, hallelujah, good for you. Like, you know? I mean, just celebrating it.
Yeah.
So.
And I always like, I mean, I've had clients say, "Oh yeah, we're a family here." I'm like, "Don't say that.
Yeah.
You don't, I don't like it either because I'm like, you don't know what that person's family is like. So, people come from all sorts of families, right? And so, but that's why I like, it's a community. Like we're part of a community that we're choosing to be a part of. So how do we, I think that makes it feel more like it's something we own together.
100%.
We can all cultivate this community.
That's like us.
Yeah, with our little communities.
You used to be my boss.
I did used to be. That's how we met. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's even
And then-
like this.
And then when Hannah called, and I had actually said to Darren, like, we'll lose Hannah. Hannah will own her own business someday. Like she's, that's what you're wired for. So when she called, I was very sad, but also excited for you. And then now we are creating new things together. Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. For me, when I talk to workers, I always tell them a family, there's like unspoken rules and there's expectations and you give whether or not you're getting back. And I don't feel like that is a useful, like those are red flags for me in a workplace.
Totally.
This should be an exchange.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of community and also exchange. Like I'm going to give you part of my time and you're going to give me money. And hopefully other things that you guys are talking about that provide satisfaction and commitment, joy, all those things in the workplace. But there should be an exchange. Yeah, there shouldn't be unspoken like the value shouldn't be you give to this organization no matter what. Right? I think that's what some of my clients struggle with is that they're having this demand from the top that's like, but we just do this because we believe in the cause.
Yeah.
Or we just do this because we believe, or especially in our field, we didn't get into this to make money, or we didn't get into this so that we could have a work-life balance. We got into this because we care about people,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there are, and I do agree with there should be an exchange. And I think a business sometimes might say, yeah, well, your paycheck is, that's the exchange. But I kind of think that's BS because I think there's things that a business can do. So we talked about creating community, but creating purpose for people, creating alignment with a mission that they believe in, creating opportunities for them to grow and expand. And if they do those things, if they provide those things to their employees, they're actually going to get things back too. They're going to get better work. They're going to get more engaged employees. They're going to get people who want to grow in that environment and in that community and contribute at a higher level and discover new and different ways that they can help support this business. So I think it's short-sighted when leaders don't see the ROI that they can get from training their people, connecting them to mission, helping them to find their purpose. Like there is a definite return on investment in that.
Well, and I also think that this is just the way things are going now too. I mean, I've called it the people revolution for the last couple of years, which I'm, not tied to that, it's like an actual revolution. But for a long time, like as we talked before, boomers and traditionalists were like, just work because work is supposed to suck. It's work. Because, they come from a legacy of kind of indentured servitude, poor farmers, things like that. Like it makes sense. That's what their background was. There wasn't the exchange always. And then our generation came in, Gen X, and said, well, no, but does work have to suck? Right? We have all this information now with the internet and access to so much more data, but we're managed by these boomers. So, yep, it's going to suck. Just
I need to.
Right. And then the millennials did come in and they were like, wait, work shouldn't suck. Right? It shouldn't suck. And I'm going to make it better. And we're a big population. We're the biggest workforce that's hit the United States as a generation in a long time. We're going to make it better. And they're working super hard and they're kind of going against a tide that's really hard to fight, but still trying to fight. And unfortunately, they're kind of burning out on it. But now you've got Gen Z, or the Zoomers, as I like to call them, because it just sounds like so perfect to me. With Zoom and Boomer, it's perfect. But they're now like, no, work won't suck. It won't. Yeah. We are determined. And they are fighting and pulling this movement and pulling alongside the millennials. And now the Gen Xers are like, yeah, work shouldn't suck. That's right. And even the boomers are like, yeah, work shouldn't suck. Deep down, we've always known that. We just couldn't see another way. And so now there's like this huge movement. I believe we're on the front lines of this people revolution, or this people movement, or employee movement, whatever, that's going to make it so that work won't suck anymore. unless something comes down in a big global way that stops this idea of the exchange, which could happen, which is terrifying, but that's a topic.
Yeah. Whole other podcast. Yeah.
I do believe that. So when you're doing something where you're being drained of energy every day, either you're drained because the work isn't your natural wiring and it's just hard. Like we can all push through and do stuff. Like I can go dig a hole, but digging holes is really hard, right? And so I will eventually exhaust out with it. And so it's like if you're being drained of energy every day, what's actually happening inside your body is you're being flooded with hormones that are breaking your cells down. You're being flooded with catabolic hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. It's very super useful in certain situations, but in an everyday 8-hour a day, 40-hour a week environment, that is going to be extremely draining for people. Where you want to be in a role where you're in flow, where you're being flooded with serotonin and oxytocin and dopamine and all these other hormones, where you're actually feeling really productive and up and not depleted of energy. And so now, can you have that all of the time? No, you can't have it all of the time. I don't think any of us deep down expect, or our brains wouldn't even actually allow for us to be in that state of high all of the time, right? Even now, we've just recently discovered that even dopamine isn't a great hormone for our brains, right? We get a dopamine hit, and then we have to go back into equilibrium, which means something has to bring us back into equilibrium, which is a sad hormone, something, right? So how phenomenal is it then if we can just accept that there will be some times when we're going to be in flow, we're going to be doing all this great stuff, and then we have to recover. And we might not feel as much joy and feel as much happiness in our work. But if we can tie it back into the biology too of it, and like, what if we actually created structures like that inside of our companies where we allowed people to rest, we allowed people to have a big push and then take a break, and it was actually accepted instead of and then because then we wouldn't have the burnout like we do right now, which is the burnout comes from just like expecting on both sides, go. I need to be happy all the time. It's like, why? Why can't we change that? So John and I've learned so much from working together because we have really similar energy. And what I mean by that, and like we are really good at monitoring our own energy. And so like, I know for me, I will sometimes wake up with a burst of energy on a Saturday morning. If I want to work, I'm going to work. If John wants to work on Sunday morning because he's got that burst of energy, go for it.
Yeah,
but then
he doesn't.
But there have been some times when you sent me some things at random times, and I'm like, right. And it's not to be judged, which is what we often do, either as workers or as employers. And so, whereas other people need the Monday through Friday 8 to 5, or other people need truly part-time work. Like, we're just not thinking about work in the way I think we could if we were looking at both sides of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think flexibility is super important to employees right now. So we spend a lot of time with our clients talking about like, well, what can you do? And there's a lot of fixed thinking around it sometimes.
So much.
They get really stuck. Yeah, and it drives both of us crazy. Because they're sort of unwilling to get out of their mental models around like, well, this is what work looks like. Does it really have to though?
Right.
And particularly, Kendra has created a workplace, and we do this with some of our clients too, where like, let's not get bound up in the schedules. Like, if family first is our value, and if somebody wants to work from like 6 to 7 o'clock in the morning and then take care of their family from 7 until 9, and then come back and work again, right? That's fine. We don't care. Right. Kendra truly does not care, right? But a lot of our clients just get really stuck in that. But creating that flexibility for people to work at the times when they can do their best work and they're in that flow can have amazing results. Not every job is like that. Right. It's not.
No, but there's still ways you can give people agency around that. And that's the other part where there's such a fixed mindset. So, like one of our clients who's very well trained, went through all of our training and the whole organization has. So they've got this environment already where people are knowing that they have a little bit more control and they're well trained on this. When COVID hit, they had to shut down, right? Everyone went into lockdown, and they make money by being in person. And so when you make money by being in person, it really makes this flexibility conversation hard. Does it have to be? And what this guy did, which was so cool, is he said, well, why am I telling people the schedule they should have? We have to, everyone needs to make money. Everyone recognizes that we're going to make money by being in person. But why am I telling them when they need to be here? And he put the schedule up on a wall, gave everybody a Post-it note, and said, pick your shift.
Wow.
And they went in there, and they were like, at the end of it all, he said there was like 2 shifts left. So then they had to like go like, come on, somebody step up. We got 2 shifts left. There was bartering going on. I'm going to that concert Friday night. Oh, I'm going Saturday night. It was swap, right? It was the coolest thing ever. And if suddenly he was like, why was I the one ever doing the scheduling? Right? Ever. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Like there's always ways to think about this anyway, but yeah, it was so cool. But this is a huge passion project of mine because I've run Turning the Corner since day one. 2011 is a totally flexible environment.
Yeah.
We've had core hours and we've had flexible hours. And our core hours are literally Thursday morning from 9 to 11.
Wow.
That's the only time I want people in one spot.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
It just sounds like a lot of fear.
I was just trying to say that. Like we need like guardrails. Even me, like I don't give a shit when my people work, but there's even this part of me that's like, should I care? Should I not?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like,
do I need to be monitoring them?
Yes.
Do I need to be controlling and monitoring?
yeah.
So ingrained.
It's so ingrained.
It is.
And I'm giving the exchange. I'm giving them money, so I need them to be showing up in a certain way.
Yeah.
And instead, it's about looking at outcomes. What are the outcomes that you are expecting, that you are looking for? If you can measure those outcomes, measure productivity in a way that's meaningful, like, are you achieving the things as a business that you're trying to achieve? If that's happening, great.
Yeah.
Who cares when they're doing it?
Yeah.
Right? Again, not every job is like that,
Right.
but like that's for some jobs that are really truly more about the outcomes that you're looking at. Talk about those things. So talk about when, or butts and seats and that kind of thing. And I think that's a style of management and leadership that people are not accustomed to because it's not been modeled for them.
Totally. And from a psychological perspective, like money and success in business equals survival on this planet. And so what do we do when we're scared? We try to control, you know? And so it's like so much fear and so much control and like other people. And are we doing this? And is this?
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, I always call it trust issues. Like when someone says they have to be here and they don't make money by being in person, I just immediately know it's something to do with trust. But I think you're right. It's actually deeper. It's fear. It's a fear.
Yeah. If I give them this flexibility, my business will fail and I'll go under.
And therefore like my like survival is threatened.
Yeah. But what if instead, you know, they were in a job that is meaningful for them. They felt like what they did has impact and has meaning for them and for the company. If those things are in place, they will get the job done.
Because you're meeting the human needs. Yeah. It goes back to your story, right? Like you went away for 6 months, and because these people felt like part of it, they had a community, they were seen, it was an exchange, like it was no problem, right? Their needs were met.
Well, and more on the fear note, you know, I'm always talking to my clients about the evolution of humans, which this little sliver of modern life is so teeny tiny little baby sliver of life. Like we are not caught up to all of the way that we work and eat and get sheltered and get connected and have community now. So our brains are very much working on an outdated software system or hardware system, I guess, right? So if you think about it, if we're constantly being like thrown back into that part of our brain that's really about fear and survival, we are going to have more fixed mindsets, more black and white thinking, even less productivity, less connection. We're going to try and control environments more. So I think there's really an argument for creating safe spaces, or places where people come and like can let go,
Be a human.
and be a human. And I'm not saying that you don't show up and are professional, but I'm saying
But,
I don't know.
but I think it gets back to what we were talking about earlier. So that fear is why people stay in jobs that they don't actually love. because they're like, but I make money doing this. And so I'm terrified
Yeah.
that if I don't do this thing,
Yes.
I won't make money and I won't survive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also they're, so they're afraid to talk about what they really want. Their workplace isn't adept at having that conversation with them either. Right. And so they're, maybe they're expecting that out of their workplace and they're not able to provide that, or they just keep doing that job and they don't say anything about it. And so they just get themselves into very locked thinking and fixed mindset around what's possible.
I think you guys are onto something. Not that like you need my approval, but I mean,
It was
really
that's great,
are.
though.
And from a psychological standpoint, like mental health, I'm going to like, what's the chicken or the egg? Like, why is everyone so depressed? Everyone's dissociated on their phone. People are disengaged in their relationships in their life. And they're showing up to work at 9 o'clock, disengaged there. That's depleting them. It's like this rabbit hole, right? And so it's like, what's the end? And it sounds like that, like work and showing up differently and finding a job that aligns with you and all these things we're talking about is a way to create that shift.
That's how I feel completely. I feel like when you are content at your job, in your job, it makes everything about life easier. Everything easier. I mean, even the cortisol hit you get at 3 a.m. I was telling John, like, I still wake up at 3 a.m. A lot of us grown-ups do, right? That's our bodies are designed. Wake up and check the surroundings and make sure everything's okay.
Right.
Here's a little cortisol hit just to make sure you are up.
Yeah.
Right?
And then in our modern world, I'm like, okay, which of the 10 things should I be worrying about right now,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, but if it has to do with work, like I go back to sleep because I know I have the team that I know is going to help me think through it. Like, I mean, even right now, like we're going through an enormous amount of stress, and work is not the top thing on my mind at 2 and 3 in the morning. No, it really isn't. And it's kind of amazing, actually. I was telling my husband that the other day. He's like, I need you to listen to that. He's like, that is profound. That is profound. That you are more worried about these other things.
So
Which I
how
want
do
to
we
talk
get-
to you about. Can I have a free session? No,
Wait, I need a free session. I'm like, how does work not be my
swap.
Wait, I'm like, how does work not be? I'm like, do you go back to sleep at 30? Because my ass doesn't. My ass is not.
I literally sent Johnny on Instagram a DM today of this like monster that's dancing, and it's like my anxious thoughts at 3 a.m. in the morning. It dances out.
Yeah.
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 This is a good one.
That's a good one. Our listeners are gonna love you.
And if you're not watching, they're smart, but they're hot too. I'm gonna say it again.
She will. She'll keep focusing on it. I love it.
Well, one of the things that I do think, because we put a lot of responsibility when we were just talking on leaders. It's like, well, leaders got to lead,
Oh, yeah, it's super hard. Yeah.
But businesses often don't create true leadership roles. So not only do they not train them, but they create these positions where it's like, you got to do all of these tactical things and deliver on these things. And you have to lead a team of people. But true leadership takes a lot of time. And so this concept of the working manager, the working supervisor, the working director, whatever the title is, where they have to be doing all of these things and they don't actually have time to meet with their team. They don't
conceptualize or plan. That's what I'm hearing
Right,
from my
strategic,
middle managers.
yes.
I don't have time to do anything strategic.
Yeah.
Right.
But I feel bad for my team, so I just do all their tasks for them.
Now, I will say sometimes it's on them
Yeah.
because, and this is typical of what you see when somebody was a great doer. They really liked doing the job, and then they got promoted into leadership. But they don't want to stop doing the thing that gives them joy, right? And so they don't stop. They don't delegate. They're not able to release doing tasks because they actually get a lot of satisfaction from that.
Yeah.
And so then they get themselves locked up in this thing. They start burning out because they're trying to lead and do the things. And then their team is like, I would really like to develop, but my manager is not letting me. They won't let go of the tasks. And sometimes it's trust. We talked about trust. Sometimes it's fear.
Some people cannot delegate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they don't have, it's a skill.
Yeah.
Learning how to
It
delegate.
is.
It's a skill. And if you're not taught how to do it and then you're not encouraged also by your management team. Yeah, but no, by no means is this at all, the message cannot be, and is not right at all for us to say, this is all on the leadership. It's all on the managers. It's not. It's absolutely not. Like it is a symbiotic relationship of which both the employee and the employer and the leaders of the employer together need to create this environment where people can thrive. It's a dual role completely. But I will say, or I should say, and I will say that leaders have a lot more role in it than what they're playing right now.
Yeah.
And so it's because of the environment that's been set up for them. They're not able to do it. They're not trained to do it. They don't have the alignment with the broader, bigger leadership and the reasoning, and then it's not being modeled. So, which is actually the keynote talk that I'm giving right now, is teaching that from a stage too, because it's such a simple, easy message, and so for people to hear.
And you're empowering people. Like you can like use your voice and say what you want and do what you want to do. Like you're empowering not just managers, like you're empowering people too.
The entire
organization,
all the people in
100%. Because it isn't just like this power differential, like power play. I mean, that's like patriarchy, right? But that's another topic.
Yeah, should we start talking about patriarchy real
Just throw that in there. At a moment's notice, you can talk about the patriarchy.
We really can, actually. You want some thoughts on that? Well, before we go down a rabbit hole of patriarchy and all of the other pieces, and I'm sure we've both thought of reasons why we want to have you back and things we want to talk about you both with. Thank you so much for being here. Will you please tell us a little bit more about how you can help people, who you can help, how they can get in touch with you, all of that good stuff?
Yeah. So the easiest way is to go to turningthecornerhr.com. And then from there, you can branch out and find your way to our where we can help individuals, or you can branch to how we can help the actual leadership of an organization with either getting clear on the values, helping with the infrastructure, helping with the hiring, all of those various pieces. And on that site, you can also find a couple really neat newsletters that we publish every week or every other week. One is our 52 tips. So every week I record a quick video, just like a quick tip of some really edgy, weird idea that I usually came up with at 3 a.m. but that's really like on the edge. So this kind of stuff, but every single week.
Cool.
And so that's a great thing for people who are in a leadership role. And then we have 26 tips for people who want to love their job. So it's every other week because you need a little bit more time to process it.
Yeah.
And so both of those can be signed up for really easily from our site, and we'll get you guys a QR code to put in the show notes too for us.
Yeah. You can also see our training schedule for all of our management training, as well as we have training for people who aren't in a management role but want to start to learn how to advocate for themselves, connect to their passion, all of those types of things. So we've got great training offerings, as well as, of course, I've got to shout out my team and the HR folks who are helping businesses with everything from like writing policies to creating handbooks to doing engagement surveys and connecting with their teams. We find that listening to people and listening to employees is the best way often to solve your company's problems. And we help you do that because people love to talk to us. So
yes, we do.
So that you see all those services as well as our recruiting services as well, right?
Yep. We have a great training program, management training program that teaches managers how to be great managers. It's been around for almost 10 years now. So that one, and then leaders for clearing out head trash, trust issues, fear.
I need that.
Yeah.
And then you can also catch Kendra's podcast.
Thank you.
Available where all podcasts are sold. I don't know. But
or listen to How I Turned the Corner is the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, since we jumped in the middle of statistics at the beginning, I didn't get to mention that not only you're an entrepreneur, business owner, but a podcaster. We love having other podcasters. It's great to have you too, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also here.
If I'm a small to mid business, you are a great fit for me. What about nonprofits, government? It sounds like you guys can help all sorts of organizations.
Yeah, we work with nonprofit and governments. You know, our team actually has a lot of diversity in their experience. And so there's a lot of us who either volunteered with or worked for nonprofits. I've worked in government and public sector, but we have a lot of private sector experience, a lot of large companies. You know, some of our employees have worked for really large companies. And we actually, it's not just small and mid-sized businesses. We work nationwide with employers of all sizes.
Small, mid, big, large, for-profit, nonprofit.
We can do it all.
You guys can do it all.
We just don't work with jerks.
Yes.
Right,
No
no
jerks.
jerks.
Don't even reach out. You will be fired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah.
And you know if they don't take you on, then there's your jerk test.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not sure, if you're not sure, reach out to Kendra and see.
She'll let you know.
She'll let you know.
I don't think you're
not a fit for us.
And here's my favorite competitor.
exactly. I love that. Okay,
Well,
what if we want a keynote speaker though?
You can go to KendraProspero.com. Yeah, and I have. I mean, you just barely touched the iceberg of all the things we could talk about. So,
Sure.
I mean, there's not a single thing I couldn't get up on stage to talk and help address.
Okay.
But my big keynote I'm offering right now is for people who are struggling with that, like how to actually create a leadership team that is doing what you want them to do.
Yeah, Kendra and I have a lot of opinions and are happy to talk about them.
No.
I always joke that I think I could do a filibuster. I
Yeah.
could beat Ted
Oh,
Cruz.
you'd be so good at
And
that.
I would actually talk about something that was actually
And
meaningful.
everybody would be like, "Oh, this is actually really
I will
helpful."
listen to this. Was she wearing a diaper? She was up there for 26 hours. Yes.
I would watch that.
I would too. I would
watch
put a
that.
diaper on too.
Yeah. We would all be like, "We're here for it."
Yeah.
Eating our popcorn.
I mean,
Yeah.
whatever you're into, I'm not here to judge.
So yuck my yum. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right.
I think the work you guys are doing is so important and life changing. And I just want to tell you, as a tiny business owner, like it really inspires me. And I feel like I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate you guys doing this for my own personal self because it's about me.
Well, it is our podcast.
Yeah.
So.
No, for real.
That's
though.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's really important and amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you both so much for being here. It was great to laugh and talk with you and learn from you. And thank you for taking the time to stop by and chat with us.
Absolutely.
I'm
Sure.
sure you'll hear from both of these wonderful humans again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Jane here. Just wanted to give you a quick reminder that Hannah and I are still doing a fundraiser for the Project Hope Hurricane Relief Fund for all of the people that were affected by Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene. We're still thinking a lot about those people, their experiences, their losses, and want to do what we can to give our support. So for the entire month of October in 2024, for every single either review or 5-star rating that we get on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we are going to donate $5 on your behalf to the Project Hope Hurricane Relief Fund. We would love your support for this podcast, and we would love to be able to donate for you on behalf of you to those people who are in need. So pop over to Spotify, pop over to Apple Podcasts, give us a like, give us a review, make sure you're following us so that you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. You've been listening to Are We Happy Yet? A podcast brought to you by Green Roof Studios. This episode was produced, recorded, and edited by Jane Thatcher Hahn and Hannah Buzzo. All original music was written and recorded by the Jane Thatcher Band. For more information about the show or to get in touch with us, please visit our website at www.arewehappyyetpodcast.com. Thanks for joining. See you next time.